Hi, with Cincy Diesel Repair. Today what we're working on is an 04 F550. It's had another motor put in it a few years ago. It's now an 05, an up-style engine. And what we're going to do is a preventive engine repair on it. By that I mean we're going to do the EGR cooler delete. We're actually going to block it. We're not going to delete it. We are going to do an upgraded oil cooler. And we're going to do a little bit of tuning in the truck, not really horsepower, but just to let the system know the EGR is gone and for a little bit of fuel mileage. I'll show you. We got it torn down here, and I found a few things. I got this mask off. I already cleaned up where the intake goes. This is your old feed tube, or return tube, I'm sorry. That's getting replaced. We put a new screen here going back to your high pressure oil pump. Got the valley all cleaned up. This motor's probably got about, I think he said around maybe 20,000 miles on it. So not much, but I found a few things. First, I'm going to be using SCT X4 programmer in this truck. There's the new oil tube. Much bigger flanges on these tubes. They hold up a lot better when you're trying to wiggle that big old turbo in there. My gasket set for doing putting the oil feed tube and everything, the gasket for that and everything back on the turbo. The seal for the EGR, gasket for the intake gaskets themselves. And then over here, I got the oil cooler housing all broke apart. It's all resealed, new gaskets. Got the new cooler from PPE, a little upgraded cooler. Turbo's off. We're going to go ahead and go through and clean that. And then the EGR cooler, like I said, we're going to keep it. We're going to put freeze out plugs in here. It's the way I do them usually. It's cheaper. I've not had any issues unless you're running high tuning on the truck, which this one's not. It's just a service truck. So it should work out pretty good. But one thing I've noticed, we've had to order several pigtails for the wiring harness because somebody got in there and just broke them all apart. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's all just bare wire, and there's several pigtails. So dieselpartsdirect.com. Got those coming, but when I look down in here, and I don't know if it'll pick it up or not, but there's rusty sludge down in there. Now, that is a combination of two things. One, in my opinion, and people may argue with me, I don't care, the Ford Gold is the biggest pile of junk coolant they ever made, and it breaks down like that and clogs up the filter, or the cooler. Yeah, that's the oil cooler. And then secondly, I think that cooler went through the engine failure in the last motor, and they just took the whole oil cooler assembly and stuck it on this new long block. So all the junk that had built up in that cooler in the old motor, I think the truck's got around 200,000 on it. So over 180,000 miles before the motor failed, they just stuck the old thing back in there. And this is a Ford dealer. So this man's lucky we decided to do this preventive repair on this thing. He was worried about the EGR cracking and wasting this new motor. Well, it was going to, because when your oil cooler clogs, it takes out your EGR cooler, sends coolant into the cylinders, and now you've got just a total disaster. So we're going to go ahead and put the oil cooler back on it, take care of that problem. And then I'll show you guys what I do with the EGRs, the way I block them off. And this is a system that most people argue about on the internet. I've done it to many of them. I've never had any issues. It's about using the right size freeze out plug, basically. So we'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so we got the freeze out plugs pressed in here, and got one on this side, and I put little indentions here with a punch on this side to keep them from moving if it possibly does. I've never had one walk out on me. they've always stayed right there. I've pulled them out after several 100,000 miles and they haven't moved an inch. For the square style coolers, here's the 2 part numbers. These are Dorman plugs, 555-021 and a 555-093, and then I push in the small one with a 11/16 and the larger one with a 13/16. Hammer them in. If you hammer them in, make sure you put it in a vise and try not to crush the cooler. You don't have to get them in there real tight. So they're in there. Nice. Make sure this back one's good and flush so your gasket and everything will sit good. And same with the front one. You want the gasket and everything to sit right. And then we're going to put a new new seals on it from over here at the kit I got from Allied. We got, this is the new boot that goes right on here like that, and then we'll have the O-ring that just fell on the floor, new O-ring for right there, and then the metal gaskets are in there that go on these 2 ends. And we're going to come back here and I'm going to take this over and clean it up in the parts washer, polish this up a little bit, polish up all my surfaces, mount it all back together, and I'll be ready to go back in the truck. Okay, so we got the intake back on, turbos back on. We had to fix some wiring. This is for like the VGT solenoid, temp sensors, oil pressure switch. You know, they get old, they get oil on them, and they start showing bare wire. So we order new ones. I get them from dieselpartsdirect.com. They'll send you the pigtail, and they'll send you a lot of lead on there so you can make it fit. And they'll come with either shrink fittings, you know, little baggies with everything in them. Like that's the oil pressure pigtail. Real nice stuff. Helps you not have to buy that expensive harness from Ford. I got one I got to fix here on the ejector harness, the ground wire that goes on the back. But you know, if you look in there and you see these bare wires like that, and people have been in there hacking on it, go ahead, call up Diesel Parts Direct, dieselpartsdirect.com, and order some new pigtails and get them spliced in there. Now they come in a generic wire color, so you got to pay attention when you're putting them on. You know, like this is oil soaked, it's hard to tell, but brown with a white stripe and blue. So you just take your new sensor, line it up with the old sensor, and figure out which side goes in where. Crimp them, heat shrink them, electrical tape them, put them all back together. And so all we got left on this truck is to put the wiring harness back in it. We're going to do the coolant flush. We're going to put the heavy duty coolant in it and button it up, and then I'll set up the tunes on the X4 SCT tuner, and this one should be ready to roll. Alright, so we got the 6 liter done here. It's running good. We had it out already for, yeah, hell, it's been about a week already. Running it with the tuning in it and everything. And she's running good. We got the right oil cap back on it. All Ford filters, turbos working good. We got the heavy duty coolant in it. Had to replace one brand new battery. They're both new. This one, even though it was new, it was no good, so we had to replace a battery in it. Other than that, this truck's done. It's ready to go. So got that done. They're hanging some big axles, drop axles on that brand new Mack. And then I got a 7.3 here that needed glow plugs, so we got the harness, the relay, new glow plugs. There's a new ICP sensor in there because if you own a 6-liter or 7.3, and on a 7.3 your ICP sensor's right here, and if you pull that plug and it's got oil in it like that one, and there's oil in the sensor, that sensor's blown out. It's sending oil straight through the sensor. So we're going to replace that, bring his injector control pressure back up where it should be, and we'll get this one out of here today.